Hey you guys, this is Rafael from Relics.com. I have had a lot of people since we started doing these videos say, how did you get into Civil War pieces and what's your origin story? So like any third-rate comic, here is my origin story. I was born in a small town in Tennessee. My mom and dad collected antiques, and from the time that I was old enough to walk, I went to flea markets and yard sales, and I collected a little bit of everything just because I wanted to be like my dad. And I collected baseball cards, and I collected beer cans, and I collected just a little bit of everything. And I remember when I was small, would have been about 1977, I got my first metal detector, and it was one of the little ones out of a mail order catalog. And Dad took me to a little town called Appleton in Tennessee. That's where one of the last battles of the American Civil War were fought in the state of Tennessee. And we didn't find any bullets, but we found a pocket knife. And I thought, wow, that is so cool. And I always thought that the Civil War was interesting. Being in Lawrenceburg, we would come over to Shiloh National Battlefield with the family, and we would have picnic lunches, things like that. And I actually, thanks to my mom, that's a picture of me under a tent at Shiloh Battlefield in 1977. And that's my brother and our neighbor. They went as well. And I was hanging out on the cannons. And even then I thought, wow, this is so cool, and it's such an important place. And I remember the school trips coming to Savannah and coming to Shiloh and visiting the park, and what a special place it was. When I was in high school, I collected antiques. I bought and sold baseball cards to help make money, and that's a way that I had my extra money during college. And when I was in college, I asked a young lady out on a date. I go over to pick her up, and her dad, Jerry Burroughs, bless his heart and rest his soul, he was cleaning up some bullets that he had found while he was metal detecting. And he and I got to talking about the artifacts that he'd found. I thought they were so cool. She and I were late for the movie. The next morning, I go metal detecting with him. I wake up bright and early, and we drive to Corinth, Mississippi, and we go metal detecting. And I'm using a 20-year-old detector, and I don't find a bullet. They're with me, and they find a couple of bullets and some other things, but I'm hooked by that time. And so Jerry and his buddy Malin Calvert were with me. I don't find anything worth anything. And that would go on for 2 more days. And Bobby Mabry from Lawrenceburg, hi Mr. Bobby, was nice enough to carry me on that 3rd trip. We went to Pulaski, Tennessee, and we metal detected a spot. And up on top of a ridge, I finally found my first bullet. It was an infill bullet. And from where it was, it would have been fired by one of the troops underneath in Bedford Forest. I thought it was so wonderful. And then we go to the bottom of the hill, and I'm looking, and there is a bullet lay on top of the ground. I didn't need a detector. My first one took 3 days. My second one took about another 20 minutes and no metal detector. But I'm thankful to those 3 guys to take the time to take a 20-year-old guy out metal detecting, and I'm very thankful for those guys. While I was in school, I went to Middle Tennessee State University, and there was a shop up there that I had heard people talk about. They said, this guy over by the battlefield, he's been buying and selling relics forever. And so I go in there, and it's Yesteryear Relics, ran by Larry Hicklin. I'm fascinated because I see all of these pieces, and he's got swords, and he's got muskets, and he's got cartridge boxes and uniforms, and I'm like, oh man, you can own these pieces? And it was just fascinating to me that you could own a piece of history like that. I come back in, and I talk to him every time I kid. I took my metal detector out and they were building a highway through, and I found a little pack of bullets. There was about 10 or 12. And I'm like, Larry needs to see these right now. So I clawed up onto his porch in my boots, and Larry was nice enough. He didn't say, I don't care about your bullets, get out of here. He said, if you would, take your boots off and then come in and show them to me. So I did. And I was doing that constantly. And I know I was annoying him. And there was another fellow, Bill Hayes. And Bill Hayes was one of the kindest, gentlest souls I have ever known in my life. He took an interest in me and he helped me with my collecting. And one day I was in Larry's shop. It was on a Thursday. There was a show that weekend in Richmond, Virginia. I had a test on Friday, and Larry said he was packing up, and I said, well, where are you going? He said, Richmond. And he was just kidding. And he said, and you ought to go with me. And I said, well, what time are we leaving? And so the next morning, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because he would leave before the crack of dawn, I skipped my test. I went up there. I had just a few odds and ends, nothing good. It was a tray full of stuff that was maybe worth $100. And I went up to this show, and it was in Richmond. It was in the heart of everything. There was buzz. There were people lined up. I found 2 swords for Larry to buy, and I manned the tables. He made money, and he was nice enough to see how much that I cared about relics. And so I started going with him, and he would quiz me as we went up to the shows about the makers of things and about the styles. And he took the time to help me learn. I would go around because I had been going to the antique markets and to the flea markets, and I went into a store in Pulaski, Tennessee, and the guy there knew me. My dad worked with him at one time, and he said, you like the old Army stuff, don't you? And I said, yes, sir, I sure do. And he said, well, I had a man bring in something, and he reaches behind the counter, and he grabs a sword, and he hands it to me. And I don't know much at the time, but I know that Memphis is Southern. And on the top of the sword guard, it says Thomas Leach and Company, Memphis, Tennessee. And my heart starts beating, my heart starts racing. And I say, well, how much is it? And this is where the story differs. My dad says that he wouldn't sell it to me. I say that he would sell it to me, but he wanted $68, which might as well have been $4 million at the time. So either way that little bit works out, I go home and I said, Dad, I need $68. Will you please loan me $68? He said, no, why? And he said, no, but first. And so we go over there and we talk to Clarence, who was the fellow that had it. And Dad spends the $68. I'm so excited. I carry it around and I show it to everybody. I actually have pictures of this sword laying. That's my apartment bed from college in 1992. I was so excited that I had something that people wanted. I had something that I loved, but I knew I couldn't keep it. Because I didn't come from a rich family. I come from a family that had love. We had plenty of love. I have known every day of my life how much my mama and my daddy loved me, and I'm very thankful for that. But I was in school at the time, and I didn't have the funds to buy it. I take it to the Nashville Civil War show. I show it around, and I'm that guy that annoys me now. I took it to every table, and I got every opinion. And the best offer that I got was $1,450, which was a fortune at the time. Still a lot of money, but it was a fortune to me at that time. I took that money and I put it back into other smaller pieces that I saw that was a good buy that I could sell. In addition, once I got a little bit of inventory, Larry Hicklin loaned me his mail order list, minus the best buyers. I got you, Larry. I decided I was going to do a mail order list before the internet. So I laid out a mail order list that had 2 or 3 pages on it. Bet it didn't have $2,000 worth of relics on the whole thing. But I was so proud when I mailed it. And when that phone rang, I was so excited because I was in business. And it's crazy that it actually ended up coming back. That is the first piece that I ever sold on a mail order list. It's the brass from a patch box on a Mississippi rifle. It goes onto the stock and it opens up to reveal a little compartment on that gun. But when the fellow that bought it years later, he passed away and I got to buy his collection, and I recognized it immediately because it was such an important piece to me at the time. I think I sold it for $12 or $15, something like that. But it's always been a passion since I realized it. And a lot of people say, well, did you marry that girl that you went to pick up on the date? No, I didn't. She's a wonderful person, but I danced at her wedding and she danced at mine, and we're friends to this day. And when I got out of college, Larry knew how much I loved the Civil War. I had gotten married. I had my first daughter, Reagan. We were living in Columbia, and I always had the plan of building something at Shiloh. My wife, Lori, supported me. She was an optician. She worked to support what we wanted to do. My partner, Larry Hicklin, decided he was going to let me sharecrop relics, and sharecropped relics for 10 years next to Shiloh Battlefield. And it's an amazing time in my life where I met many of the people that influenced me and took time to help me, and I'm so thankful for that. We had that storefront for 14 years. Then we went strictly to internet and sales. I have been fortunate enough to have 2 other wonderful daughters, Jordan and Tess. And a couple of years ago, I got to become a foster dad to Miss Keelan. She is a wonderful girl, and I'm so proud of all of them. My wife, Lori, did pass a few years ago, and I am very thankful that she was around, because I would not be doing what I am doing today if it wasn't for her. Because she paid those bills when nobody wanted relics in those early days, and I'm very, very thankful for her. I hope she's resting easy today. Now, I have been fortunate enough to sell these relics for 25 years now. I've sold everything from bullets to cannons, uniforms. I've sold stuff to a little bit of everybody. I've been fortunate enough to find some wonderful pieces of metal detecting. I actually found a piece that's on display in the Smithsonian. If you get to go to the African American History Museum in Washington, D.C., the Smithsonian for American History, I found an 1847 slave tag in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's actually on display in the basement of the Smithsonian. It's one of the most wonderful museums you'll ever go to in your life. It's so well laid out. The people there are wonderful, and the food's great. Best shrimp and grits, one of the best shrimp and grits I've ever had in my life. So go to the museum, try the shrimp and grits, tell them my cracker from Tennessee sent you, because it's wonderful. And I have been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people over the years. I got to buy radar from MASH. I bought about 40 guns from him. Have met several people metal detecting. I've gotten to become friends with Hank Williams Jr. He's an amazing collector and a wealth of knowledge, but it's let me do things that I never dreamt possible by following my dream. It's let me meet people. It's let me go places. I have appeared since 2002 as an appraiser on Antiques Roadshow. This is completely separate from that. They're wonderful people. This video and the other videos are to help me sell things during this time of crisis. I love you guys. I am so thankful to be doing what I'm doing. I hope that each one of you follows your dream. I hope you get to enjoy it half as much as I do. And I hope that when you get a chance that you're kind to people. Remember that a new friend is just somebody that you hadn't met yet. And I love you. I'll catch you later. And thank you for taking time to watch this. Have a great day.